that should be going now. So fire away.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Chairman. We really appreciate you doing this town hall with all our college Republicans. I think we've got, with the turnout here, we probably have a representative from every single chapter in the state. So that's great. We're really excited to hear what you have to say about RPT. You've been doing a great job. All of the college Republicans really like what you've been doing, and would like to see it continue. So if you have some opening remarks for us, we'd love to hear it. And then I know we have a lot of eager college kids ready for some questions.
That's fantastic. I can't wait for those. And it is so great to be here with you tonight. I so appreciate you guys taking time to be on. I'm Chairman James Dickey, and it is incredible to be with the Gen Z generation of the Republican Party tonight. I expect full critique on ways I can improve my tech immediately after the town hall. But let me say, I am so proud of you guys, and I appreciate you. Thank you for stepping up at such a young age to be active in the greatest political party that this country has to offer. Thank you for being part of the party of Lincoln and Reagan and Trump. Thank you for being part of the party that uniquely espouses personal responsibility, entrepreneurship, family values, and the belief in American exceptionalism. The Republican Party has an amazing history, and I am so excited to see how you will help define its future. Clearly, I am excited to be here today, and I'm excited to see you in July at our convention. I know for the vast majority of you, this will be your first convention, and I am thrilled to be here to talk with you about it as you embark on this process to become a delegate. I'm also thrilled to be here as you have already taken actions to become a part of our victories in November on election night 2020. There are two big things I want to cover tonight. And that is the convention process and victory for November 2020. You know, as chairman, I have been traveling around Texas 4 to 5 days a week, often even more, usually putting about 1,000 miles on my car every week, over 100,000 miles since I became chair. It's wonderful to see so many great faces tonight and to meet with you virtually and to give you an update on this, on our party during this pandemic moment. We are focused completely on victory in November, and nothing is going to stand in our way, including coronavirus. This is an unprecedented time, and we face unprecedented challenges. But this is a time, and these are challenges that we will conquer as long as we are united. As President Trump says, we are all in this together. In that vein, we've been in a constant communication with all of our Texas Republican grassroots about the impact of coronavirus on us and our local and state conventions and the transitions we've been making in the field from in-person to phone and online contact, and how we at the party are staying laser focused on victory in November. So allow me the privilege of getting a little bit in the weeds with you. There've been a lot of operational business that the Republican Party of Texas is responsible for, and I want to dig into that just for a second about the local and state conventions. So the State Republican Executive Committee met electronically to address two big issues that directly affect our grassroots. The first was the date of the state convention, and the second was the national convention delegate allocation method. First of all, they voted to move the state convention that's going to be in Houston from May 14th, 16th to July 16th, 18th. And then second, they voted to allocate all of our at-large delegates using the statewide allocation method from the primary results. Now, by doing those two changes, we were able to submit those to the RNC. And to get them finalized, we have to have an in-person vote, and that in-person vote is this Saturday in Weatherford. But because we had that online meeting, and because it was nearly unanimously ratified at that online meeting, we were able to submit those changes to the Republican National Committee. And this was big, because if they had not approved those changes, our delegation would have been penalized enough to shrink it from 155, the second largest in the country, to only 9. But instead, with nearly miraculous timing, with a lot of hard work, we were able to move the date of the convention, which had been set 3 years ago, from May 16th to 18th to July 16th. Sorry, 14th, 16th to July 16th to 18th. Then we had to move 287 county and Senate district conventions. They were all by law scheduled to happen March 21st. And we had to get volunteers all over the state to be able to properly move those conventions. And why the focus on the rules and proper handling of all this so much? Because the stakes could not be bigger. Our state convention is where we elect our delegates to the national convention. The national convention is what actually elects our nominee for the November ballot. And not only that, but at our state convention, we elect the presidential electors, the 38 Texans who will cast their vote for President Trump next January. They get elected as part of our state convention. So the stakes could not be higher. And it was critical that it all happened smoothly, and it went off without a hitch. We also got the permission we needed from the Republican National Committee to avoid that penalty. And we did that in part because of all the work the team had done, but also because our National Committee man, Dr. Robin Armstrong, serves on that executive committee. And we had good relationships there, and we presented a solid plan, and they signed off on that. As a result, our delegate protection plan was approved in full by the RNC. So now that we got through all of that, our road to convention is still just beginning. Our objective is to hold all our local and state conventions in person, if at all possible. We've got 287 conventions we got to get through. A lot of them are scheduled to start as early as May 16th, and they're allowed to go as late as June. We have to have all the data turned in by June 27th. We're going to continue to communicate heavily, and we're going to continue to manage this process and the progress through this pandemic very, very carefully. So we got through all of that, but we are also still focused on making sure that we win in November. My number one priority for the Republican Party of Texas is to win for President Trump and Republicans down the ballot in November. Let me repeat that. My number one priority is to win for President Trump, delivering all 38 Texas electoral votes for him, and win for Republicans from the White House to the courthouses all over Texas. That is the business of the Republican Party of Texas, to elect Republicans to office, to advance Republican principles, to elect more Republicans to office. And we at the RPT are fully focused. We're working around the clock to ensure that Texas delivers the votes we have to do. And how have we been doing it? Well, immediately on election night in 2018, we had the vision and foresight to begin the work towards 2020. If we had not spent every day since that election preparing for this November, we would have been in a terrible position when this pandemic hit. But because we went to work immediately in November 2018 to prepare for November 2020, we are on the right track. Because of the vision and foresight we had and the hard work we put in, the Republican Party of Texas ended 2019 with a record $4.4 million on hand. And we head into the second quarter of 2020 with a never before reached $4.7 million on hand to defeat Democrats in November. This is a direct result of the incredible coalitions that we have put together to support the RPT like never before. I am so grateful to everyone who's joined me in preparing the RPT for November victories. It is all on the line in Texas, and I am committed to winning. In fact, we have already got in the field more than double the staff that we had at the peak of the last two elections combined. And that staff had already been to work. And when we shut down, they didn't stop operations, they switched from in-person to online and phone. And as a result, this past weekend, we did over 44,000 phone calls. This month, we will have done over 125,000 phone calls in 1 month. That's more than any month in either of the last two elections, much less as early as April. The other thing we need to do, we've got people, we got resources, we've got activity, we need good candidates. And so for the first time, back in late 2018 and early 2019, I recruited Kat Parks, and she recruited an amazing team, and we put together a candidate recruiting task force because you lose 100% of the races you're not in. And we needed good, hardworking, trained, equipped candidates to run for us all over Texas. Well, we got that. And as a result, we have more than double the number of candidates on our ballots across Texas than the Democrats had on their ballots across Texas. But also, we have the smallest number of unchallenged incumbent Democrats in Texas history. Winning in 2020 started in November 2018 and with filing in 2019. I am so proud of all the work we've done so far. One of the most powerful things we've done is an attention and focus on voter registration like we've never had before. We put together the Volunteer Engagement Project, and that group put out the 10K for 10R project. We're looking for 10,000 volunteers to each help us register 10 new Texas Republicans. To sign up, all you have to do is text 10K to 72,000 or fill out the form at texasgop.org. When you sign up, we will send you a list with names and phone numbers of 10 people that we are 90% sure are hardcore Republican and 90% sure are not yet registered to vote in Texas. All you have to do is call them and ask if we at the Republican Party can mail them a voter registration form. It's wonderful, it's successful, it's impactful, it is making a difference, and it's something you can do right now in the middle of this pandemic. But it's another thing that we had to start early enough. And thank God we did. 10,000 volunteers, 10 apiece. That's a goal of 100,000 new voter registrations. Well, we started months ago. And at the beginning of April, we confirmed that we have already registered 80,170 brand new Texas Republican voters. Those voters are going to be crucial to winning races all over the state. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, it's been decades since the RPT has focused on registering voters. It is one of the most time-intensive and difficult political activities you can do, but it's also one of the most impactful and one of the most long-term impactful. And it's important enough that we've gotten the help of Karl Rove, Steve Munisteri, Mitch Carney, and volunteers all over Texas who have been banding together to not cede an inch of ground to Democrats this year. You know, they've been intentional about this for a while. We have not. And to give you a feel for how important it is, over the 6 years from 2012's primary to 2018's general election, Texas added 2.7 million new voters. And 2.7 million new voters is more voters than exist in all of Colorado. we added a Colorado in 6 years. Now we got our organic share, but that's not good enough anymore. We are being intentional and we want you to be a part of it. We need you to be a part of it. Sign up, 10K for 10R. Text 10K, 72,000. As the election comes near, all your CR chapters, all your members, you guys can be a critical difference maker for us. You can make sure that all the college Republicans at school that you know, whether at school or home or however, make sure they're registered to vote. And we're happy to partner with you on it. We have been, we continue to be, and we will not stop being committed to delivering all 38 Electoral College votes to President Trump and of delivering victory for Republicans from the White House to courthouses all over Texas. We are firing on all pistons. We are on the right track to victory in November. We are on the right track to defeat the Democrats. And we want you to be a part of it. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any concerns, email me at jrdickey, JRDICKEY @texasgop.org. And by all means, if you're not already, sign up. Text 10K to 72,000. I'll pitch it back to you guys.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We really appreciate you coming out here and talking to us. We have a lot of questions ready for you, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and roll into the questions. First, we have Colin Pruitt, who's actually the chairman of our federation.
Howdy, Mr. Dickey, or Chairman Dickey. We're really glad to have you on, and just on behalf of all the members, Carter already said it, but we're extremely grateful to have you on, and we're all really supportive and know that you've been supportive of us over the last couple of years. And so I just wanted to ask, what is the most impactful thing that we as college Republicans can do to help in the Republican Party's wider efforts to keep Texas red in 2020?
So the biggest thing I've learned as I've gotten really involved over the last 3 or 4 years is that politics is very seasonal, that there are things that are only appropriate at certain times of the year. So candidate recruiting had to be done before the candidate filing window. Voter turnout really only works those last few weeks of the election. Voter persuasion only works a few months before the election. That's part of what makes voter registration so powerful. You can register a voter now and it matters a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. So the number one most important thing to do is help us with those voter registrations. But an important second thing that you guys have a unique advantage in doing would be to help us spread the message on social medias and you know, help us with memes, with graphics, with just spreading the word. That's a thing you guys can help us with that I think you're uniquely enabled to do.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Awesome. Great point, Mr. Chairman. We have our next question up. We have Bev Furr from Sam Houston State University. So I'll unmute her now.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. My question is, what is the process of becoming a delegate for state convention?
Great question. So to become a delegate, it varies a little bit by county, but I'll give you the general process. So there's a precinct convention, then there is a county or Senate district convention, then there's state convention and national convention. And at each level, at a precinct convention, you are eligible to participate in the precinct convention either by having voted in the primary or by simply swearing an oath of affiliation, even if you didn't vote, as long as you didn't vote in anybody else's primary. So that lets you go to the precinct convention. Every precinct convention is allowed a certain number of delegates to the county and Senate district convention. And most of the counties in Texas, there's a county convention. Most of the urban and suburban counties, there are Senate district conventions because the counties split up and there are different Senate districts within the county. In that case, you'd go to a county or a Senate district convention as a delegate from your precinct convention. And in most cases, you apply to be nominated to be a delegate to the state convention. And conventions are a unique beast because the influence and authority of the convention is the majority of people who show up. So, you know, it's a very visible reminder of the old adage of a big part of life is just showing up. If you can get enough people to show up at the convention, you can pass anything you guys want to pass, whether that be resolutions or your own set of nominations. So go to the Senate District Convention. Almost always there's a process for applying to be a delegate. And it is in most counties and Senate districts, they are very excited about having young voters who want to be involved and want to be delegates. So go and apply. Talk about any experience you have, about your desire to learn and be more involved. That'll get you. That will get you your nomination considered, and then there'll be a vote to send delegates to the next level. And then at the state convention, same thing. We'll have votes to send delegates to the national convention.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. Next, I actually also have another student from Sam Houston State University. Brandon Kaiser has a question for you. I've actually got to find his screen to be able to unmute him real quick. So give me 1 second. Well, shoot, where'd Brandon go? No, there he is. Okay.
I know you're aware recently there's some issues with Baylor and TCU allowing student org to start on campus. And I was wondering what your opinion was on schools, both private and public, unfairly targeting conservative groups.
Well, I'm obviously not a fan of schools targeting any group, especially conservative groups. So the challenge is we as conservatives, we respect private property and we respect freedom of association, but we also fight for the right of association. And so I was a little bit of a renegade when I was an undergrad, and I was a conservative undergrad at Stanford when 78% of the population voted for Walter Mondale in an election where he barely won his home state. So they and I didn't see eye to eye on much of anything. And I was one of the co-founders of a super conservative organization that got all sorts of grief, and the student group didn't want to recognize it and all sorts of other stuff. And I wrote some unpopular op-eds in the paper and some other stuff. I think, you know, challenging the status quo and fighting for rights of association and rights of free speech, that is a good conservative principle and one we should all applaud. We also believe in private property and rights of association. And so I'm not a big fan of making anybody do anything, including making anybody accept stuff. But I am a big fan of enforcing our constitutional rights. And so it's a weird mix, and I've heard some arguments on both sides, but my general take is, especially as a Baylor alum, when I heard that when I heard the impression that they were slow rolling a conservative application just because it was conservative, to the extent that's true, that's disappointing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chairman. And we do appreciate your leadership on that subject. That was something that a lot of us were concerned about. Next, we have a fellow Red Raider, Chase Troll from Texas Tech, has a question for you.
Yes, I want to ask, what is different about the planning for the 2020 election than it was in the 2016 and 2018 elections? What are you doing differently?
Yeah, so I was not behind the scenes. I was a volunteer. I was a county chair in the 2016 election. I wasn't behind the scenes at the state level, but I was in 2018, and I can tell you it is dramatically different in 2020 than I can find in any records, and that than anything I saw in either 16 or 18. One of the tough things I had to fight against in 2018, we had some polling that indicated that there'd be some challenges in urban and suburban areas, and that O'Rourke was gaining more territory in some areas than we wish he would have been. I mean, we knew he was going to get a free pass in the media. Everybody could see how much money he was raising, which was an insane amount of money. But we had some polling indicating that, we could have some real trouble in the Texas House. And as I went out trying to talk to the donors about that, even the candidates about that, it was really hard to get anybody to take it seriously. Every time I would say there is a very real risk if we don't do the work we have to do, there's a very real risk we could take some hits that we don't want to have to take. I got far too often an answer that was somewhere along the lines of, bless your heart. And the great news is after 18, no one's doing that. And so donors have stepped up, candidates have stepped up, we've changed everything. There had never been a giant training effort for candidates in the RPT that I can find. So I'm careful about saying the word never. I can't find on record a giant training effort. We did 33 events around the state where we had 1,400 people pay to come to a one-day intensive candidate training school. That was a big deal. We did our big candidate training effort, recruiting effort, right? So we filled more spots than we've ever filled before. We grew assets for the party in preparation for this year's election to more than double what they had ever been before. So we've got more funds available. We have bigger staff. Our plan is to add hundreds more staff. If it weren't for coronavirus, we'd already be well on our way to having hundreds more staff to prepare for November. Now, this has really messed with stuff. So I don't know yet. We're still working through what will be the final result and where will we end up. But we are determined to have the biggest staff that we've had in memory, the biggest volunteer force that we've had in decades. If you've got a list of all the things we need to be sure and do, we are checking those off not in pencil. We are checking them off in bold colors and big strokes.
Thank you.
You bet. Great question.
Great. Thank you very much, Chairman. We appreciate your answer on that one. Next, we have Matthew Smith from Texas State. I know he's a part of a lot of conservative organizations, more than just CRs, and so he has a really unique perspective, and he has a good question for you.
Hi there. So my question is, what do you think of organizations that are conservative and right-wing consistently and constantly punching right, specifically at the main party, rather than focusing more on registering voters and electing candidates? Because being in these other organizations, some are good about playing together and doing the right thing, and some really just want to make a name for themselves and become more notorious than actually helping the cause.
Yeah, I can tell you that is a wise mentor of mine a long time ago told me that it is impossible to take the politics out of politics, and he's right. And that I spend a lot of energy trying to turn the members of the circular firing squad to turn their aim at the enemy, and we get it. at every level, in every environment. And it's not unique to politics. I'll tell you, in the corporate world, there were people who were more interested in their place in the corporate ladder than they were on how well the corporation was doing. It's the same dynamic. People worried a lot more about themselves than the cause. And as a leader in the organization, the best thing I can do is keep reminding people of our goal and of our why, right? Our goal, and that's why, if I said it once, I said it 5 times. We are focused on winning in November, and we are going to elect everybody we can elect in November so that we can advance our principles, so that we can elect more. I mean, one of the silver linings to come out of this worst pandemic in a century is that every day Texans and Americans have seen over and over again that the right answer to a challenge was the conservative answer. The right answer, there were all these well-meaning regulations the government had put in place to protect people, but then when a real threat came, the right response was to get rid of those so people could take care of themselves. And so the thing I try to do, you can only control, for those of you who are believers, the Bible says, to the extent it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Even the Bible doesn't say you better be at peace with everyone, right? To the extent it depends on you. And so what I try and do is focus on the shared enemy, focus on the shared cause, refocus energy and attention and effort that way, encourage people to come along that way. And in my experience, most people do. Not always and not all, but most of the people, most of the time. And it's amazing what you can do if you get most of the people, most of the time, pointed in the right direction.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You bet. I wish I had a panacea, and more than once I wish for a magic wand, but.
Thanks for the wise words, Chairman. Next, we have a question from Adam Lee. He's one of our rising stars in just the conservative movement in general, so he's probably going to have a great question.
All right, Adam, you're on the hot seat.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah. Appreciate the kind words, Carter, and nice to speak to you, Chairman. My question is, under your leadership, the VEP program has been doing fantastically. How do you plan to continue the success of it when people start getting back to work here in the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months?
Well, the great news for us, so first of all, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for paying attention to the VEP. That is an absolutely critical effort. No question. Right now, while many fewer people are at work, many fewer people are out doing activities, our phone connect rates have been up, and our willingness of volunteers to be on the phone has been up. But for VEP and voter registration in particular, we actually, that 80,170 of our 100,000 goal, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to settle for 100,000. If we can blow past it, we're going to blow past it, right? But that 80,170, that was as of late March, early April. So most of that had already happened before we went into lockdown. Now, the phone calls this month, which were not just VEP, but VEP and the Trump campaign and all that put together, of 125,000 plus phone calls, that activity may switch. But the reality is that our goal had always been to focus on in-person conversations, not in phone. So the phone is the best substitute we can do. And it's really great to have volunteers having a positive purpose and having a thing to do. But the in-person contact. There's a lot of research that it's hardest to do in person, but it's worth the effort because it's many times more impactful. The persuading someone in person, marking that you think you've persuaded someone in person is way more indicative than marking that you think you persuaded someone off the phone. And so that is really important. And by the way, we've got CRs who are very involved in VEP and all of the work with party. And I am very, very grateful to all of you for who have participated, for the work you're doing. And to everybody else, please join us. It is worthwhile. It is effective. It is important. Frequently to our staff, as you know, our cause is just and worthwhile, and together we can do this. We, Carter used the word conservative movement. That's been my focus for my entire life. I mean, when I was in college, I wasn't. You guys are ahead of me. I was not part of college Republicans. In fact, I was trying to remember. I'm not sure Stanford had a college Republicans club, but I did volunteer for a Republican running for Senate in San Francisco area. He didn't win, but we worked really hard on that campaign, and my wife ran for the school board as a Republican in Connecticut when we were so young. We didn't have kids yet, and we had only lived there a little while. And she almost won. So I've been fighting for conservative purpose, for the conservative cause, for the opportunity for Americans to live a better life, which our principles always cause. Right, lived out right. If you talk to people who are wise and successful, and I don't mean successful in terms of necessarily financially well off, but people who are at peace and who are content and who are a success according to their own standards, they are almost always living according to conservative principles. And we've all seen it right now in this pandemic response. You know, what was the right thing? Start removing regulation. What was the right thing? Start loosening licensing. What was the right thing? Start removing the conditions where government with really nice intentions was in the way of people being able to live out their lives. And over and over and over again, we've seen that's the right thing. And you guys are already on the right track. What I hope you find with the Republican Party of Texas is that we share the mission to make that the future. And as you're looking at decades of living under whatever you've got to live under, help us, help you make that future as bright as it ought to be. We've built the platform, we've created the tools, we're developing the system. We're trying to recruit the candidates. We're trying to recruit the delegates. Be part of the delegates. I mean, the thing that made me fall in love with the Republican Party of Texas and want to volunteer to be a delegate and to be a precinct chair and then to be a county chair was the fact that in just a few months, I could go from just a guy who had voted and donated a couple of times and helped on a campaign now and then to being an alternate delegate to the national convention and helping decide our national platform and representing my fellow Texas Republicans. And very quickly I could start up a club. I mean, we were talking about conservative clubs and that kind of thing. I started a Tea Party in Dallas. It wasn't a Republican club. It was part of the conservative movement. And then when I got to Austin, I was very active in the Austin Republican Club, but I restarted the Central Texas Republican Assembly, which was our tagline was the Republican wing of the Republican Party. And we were, our thing was to endorse in contested primaries. And so it would be hypocritical for me to say there is only one way to do it. But what I have seen firsthand is that as I talk to my peers all over the nation, and as I talk to my counterparts on the Democrat side, there is not a single other political party in the United States, and therefore I would posit anywhere I know of, that is so grassroots up, so bottom up organized, where you can play such an important role very quickly. And it doesn't take the right pedigree. It doesn't take a big investment in dollars. It takes you being committed and being willing to jump in and do the right thing. And VEP is a great way to do it. 10K for 10 hours is an amazing way to do it. Being a delegates convention is a great way to do it. You running for office, holy smokes, there's city council and school board races all over Texas where we need good people running. Run. I voted for an 18-year-old justice of the peace once, and he won and did a nice job. And we helped campaign for a very young city council candidate, right? By all means, step up. You can do it. You can make a big difference. You can make a big difference really quickly. Sorry, I get excited about that.
No, that's fine. That answered my question perfectly, and actually some other questions I kind of had on my mind. So thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Super inspiring. Next, we have Jacob Abraham. He's got a question, so we can unmute Jacob.
Honored to talk with you. I actually study at UTD, and I was wondering, how important is the role of data analytics when preparing for this year's election versus last year's election? And is there any way to be involved with the analytics effort to like analyze all the data that's out there?
Wow, that is a great question. And yes, data is absolutely critical. One of the things we've been doing since I became chair is strongly encouraging candidates to help us do the transition to where we have shared data repository and shared updated data. And there are some downside to it, but the big upside to it is that, you know, no one candidate can get as much data as all of our candidates combined. And especially as we're doing the campaigns, you know, if you have multiple campaigns running in the primary, and then you've got our nominee, well, we want that nominee to benefit from all of the work from all of the primaries. And so we built that repository, and that was an amazing thing that they did at the RNC, and it started around 2014. And frankly, had that not started then, I don't think President Trump would be president right now, because that data was good enough that, you know, his campaign didn't have to build that from scratch. They had a start. Now, I spent a lot of years in tech, and it does not stand still. And you can leapfrog. What you can't do, though, is you cannot recreate the past. And so we've done in this data a lot of voter contact. Mm-hmm. And so we actually have time series now. Sorry for, I'm going to get a little wonky, everybody. Sorry about this, but I like this stuff. We have time series of data on voter A said this 4 years ago, and then they said this other thing 2 years ago, and now here's what they're saying now. And we can map all that out, and that's a thing you can never recreate. You can't ask somebody to go back and tell you what they would have told you 2 years ago if you didn't ask them 2 years ago. And so that whole effort of gathering that data and doing that over the years, that's been an amazing pool that is one of the most valuable things and one of the biggest supports we give candidates. No candidate on the Republican side has to buy the voter data or buy, and I'm talking about the core voter data, or by block walking software, or by phone banking software. Mm-hmm. And the deal is, we will give all that to you, And just when you're done with it, we will have absorbed that data as well. That's it. And it's a very fair trade because what the group does for the data is worth more than what any one person can do for the data. And so our data has gotten better and better. And in VEP, for example, we have spent tens of thousands of dollars buying new phone numbers, buying cell numbers. All that data ends up when, once one of those prospects gets registered to vote and gets added into our data center, that cell number that we were able to get for them that let us reach out to them, that ends up in data center too, for all of our candidates from the White House to the courthouse to be able to benefit from. Now, what that means is at a lot of candidate level, the actual analytics is pretty perfunctory, right? When it's time to turn out voters, you're looking for every voter tagged as turn these people out, and you just go turn them out, right? Before that, you've done some modeling to decide which ones to tag, turn them out. And then you've done some modeling to tag which ones you need to go talk to see whether you should turn them out or not. So about now is when we're actually dealing with the models of, is this a persuadable voter we ought to go talk to and try and persuade? And a lot of these phone calls right now are for precisely that. Hey, what do you think? Are you already there? And if not, what do we need to talk about? Kind of thing. So we've got data modeling folks. Most of those are in DC at the RNC stuff. Some of the more advanced campaigns have some of their own. But the idea of the party is that we built a strong enough platform that most of the candidates can take a real base level approach and just focus on the most important thing: voter persuasion, voter ID, and then when the time comes, voter turnout. The impactful thing is, and this worked in House District 28, special election in January that the Democrats wanted to flip. They spent $2 million there. MoveOn.org, everybody else in the world was down there. Beto was down there. Everybody was down there. On our side, we had the candidate, we had the Cornyn campaign, we had our campaign, we had the governor's campaign. And the most critical thing on our side was we didn't have outside people pouring money in. We had to be sure we weren't wasting any effort. And because we had this shared data repository, the candidate would go see these people today. There was zero chance we'd waste their time by going to see the same people tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it was that real-time data sharing that kept us from wasting any effort. And as we go into the November general, where we're not just dealing with one special election, we just have to worry about 4 or 5 different entities. Now we've got the general election and we have dozens of candidates in a big, in Dallas County or Tarrant County. We got dozens of candidates and each of them has a campaign. Plus we have the state campaign, plus we have the Trump campaign. We've got to make sure we're not wasting any of that effort. That's where data is paying off the most for us.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks for the answer, Chairman. I can tell that there was a reason you were a valedictorian while you were at Stanford. Our next question comes from Ian Walker, another Red Raider. I'm really glad Texas Tech's showing up tonight with the questions. So Ian, let me unmute you.
All right. I'm the vice president of Texas Tech's chapter. And my question for you was that since as a local leader for our chapter, what advice do you have for chapter leaders to make sure that people stay involved and want to keep being involved with the Republican Party? Mostly member retention, since you are the chairman of the Republican Party here. Maybe you can share some tips here.
Well, so the number one rule, and I drum this in, anybody on staff, well, if you start to say this sentence, anyone on staff will know how to finish the sentence. And that is the worst thing you can do. And this is not just politics, this is life, this is business for sure. The worst thing you can do is let a warm lead go cold. When someone raises their hand and says, I want to help, you practically have to drop what you're doing and figure out how to make it so they can help. Now, as a leader, especially as a leader of a big organization, that's a big lift, right? There are only so many hours in the day, and you've got class and you've got other stuff to do. So one of the most powerful things you can do is in advance have 2 or 3 questions and 2 or 3 answers to the easiest way to take somebody who wants to help to, for God's sake, let them help, right? And it matters, right? And that first interaction changes a lot. It pays dividends or it pays consequences for a long time. And I've learned this lesson the hard way. I will be the first to admit there have been plenty of times I've dropped the ball on this. One of the things I love about 10K for 10R, I was talking to a county chair the other day, and it's a county chair in a big urban county, and he is overwhelmed, and he knows how big the risks are in his county, and he knows how tough it is. Well, we've already recruited candidates and campaigns. We've already got people trying to help those candidates and campaigns. But he loves that he now has an answer when somebody says, I want to get involved. He now can say, the most important thing you could do right now is 10K for 10R. Sign up for 10K for 10R, do that one sheet. And then after that, anything else you want to do, I'll talk to you about. And it's the best mix of, he's not blowing anybody off. He's taking very seriously, but he's also doing something really good, right? This only works because it's really impactful. It matters, right? It's worth doing. You can do it at any time, and it's a good answer. But also, it's a good small test. Did you mean it when you said you wanted to help? If you did, I used to do this at speaking engagements. I would ask people, hey, raise your hand if you want to help save Texas. Do you want to help save Texas? And of course, everybody raised their hands and say, great. Keep your hands up if you're willing to make 10 phone calls to help save Texas. And a chunk of people would pull their hand down because they wanted to save Texas, but not that way, right? and not that how. And so that doesn't have to be the only answer, but have for yourself. So my ideal suggestion for you would be have 2 or 3 answers, and probably precede them by 1 or 2 questions, right? What, you're saying you'd like to help. Great. What do you think we need most to do that you'd be willing to take responsibility for? That's an awesome one. Or what's the skill you think that would be most applicable to the team, right? I would have never thought to ask about data if the prior questioner hadn't asked about data and systems, right? I may not be able to give them a modeling challenge, but Lord knows we got data set up. We have candidates, campaigns that need their mapping set up and their call list set up and that kind of stuff. And it does take some comfort with data and tagging and ideally even a little bit of SQL. Well, that's a pretty decent fit to stuff. So I would have a couple of questions, and then I would have 2 or 3. I'd have just enough knowledge about the needs of the group that I could reply with a, oh, great, then I should connect you to her, or I should connect you to him, and they'll get with you. Or, okay, then because sometimes you have somebody go, anything, whatever you need, I can do. Great, 10K for 10R. Do that, and then we'll talk about what's next. Great question, Ian, and it is just the worst thing you can do is let a warm lead go cold. Don't do that.
Great advice, Chairman. We appreciate it. Next, we have Diana Lee from Sam Houston State University. We have 3 from Sam now, so they're winning the question race. All right, Diana Lee, you should be unmuted now.
Hello, Chairman.
Hey.
Hi, I serve as East Region Vice Chair in the Federation, and I'm also a very active member in my chapter. And as a female and as a minority, I haven't seen many others like me. And I was wondering, what is the plan? What is your plan to help increase involvement in the party for women and minorities?
So one of the things I was most proud of, actually, I'll take a little step back. I have taken this personally because I grew up on the poor east side of Fort Worth. My senior class, there were 206 of us in the senior class, and 204 were not white. And it has always broken my heart that those friends of mine in their community have not benefited from the policies that make life better, the opportunity that comes from the implementation of conservative principles. So it has always been a desire of mine to see conservative principles implemented specifically in the inner city. And we've not succeeded at that. We are not there. However, we are 100% fighting everywhere. When I talked to Kat Parks and recruited her to head the candidate recruiting task force, I said, my number one goal is to make sure every incumbent Democrat has a challenger. I don't care how long a shot it is. I don't care that we haven't been around there before. We can't be there if we don't get there. So find a candidate and don't just, try to find a candidate. We've got systems, we've got data. Let's make training available. Let's give them, even if it's a long shot, let's give them a shot, because every one of those candidates brings friends and family and our message to their community. We're not going to win those races instantly. We're not going to win them overnight. We're not going to win them on the first time, but you lose 100% of the races you're not in. And more importantly, those neighborhoods get the false impression that we don't care.
Correct.
Right? And it's false. It's not that we don't care, right? It literally has been scarcity of resources, right? We only got so much effort. We only got so many people. So we just can't put it where we don't have a shot at winning, right? We need to be sure we win over here. Well, yes and no, right? I mean, yes, there are some resources that are scarce, and you have to be responsible with how you allocate resources. That's conservative. But every one of those candidates brings friends and family and neighbors and communicates our message. I mean, Trey Penny is working in a congressional district that we haven't been working for a while. And we might not win, but he's got dozens of volunteers working for him. And that didn't cost us anything except being willing to be open and encouraging and supportive. And so I'm thrilled that we've done that. We did actually do more than that. We actually spent, the party doesn't actually put a lot of direct money into advertising, that kind of thing. But in October of 2018, we put $60,000 into urban radio in Dallas and Houston, and in billboards in Dallas and Houston to try to start to get the message out there that we care. Now, this candidate recruiting thing was huge. And I had big hopes for it, but I didn't even know how huge it would be. The day after the filing window closed, the Houston Chronicle called us and said, "What in the world did you do?" And I said, "Well, we started a recruiting team and we went out and recruited and trained." It turned out without any kind of artificial quota or anything, we had increased by 100% the number of women who were running as Republicans for Congress in one cycle. All it took was saying, "We want to challenge every Democrat. Please come on in. The water's fine. We'd love to have you. We got support. Go for it. We're not going to pick you. We're not going to favor you, right? And the party's required to be neutral in a primary. But we're going to tell you you're welcome, and we will give you data, and we will give you systems, and we will offer training, and you can have all of that. And if you are then going to go spread our message in your community, God bless you. I'm glad to have you."
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Chairman, we've got 2 questions left. The first one is going to be from Bella Bravin. She's down there in DFW at TCU. So Bella, I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, Chairman Dickey. This is Bella Braven from TCU CRs. I just want to know what we can do to, like, chapters in the DFW area, what we can do to help your plans to keep DFW red in this summer and in the fall.
That is a great question. DFW is a very much a focus area. Far too many of the 12 Texas House seats that we lost were there. Both of our Texas Senate seats we lost last time are there, and one of our congressional seats that we lost was there. That was a direct result of straight ticket voting and the Aurora campaign and how much work they did in that area, and the fact that we had a difficult time getting people to do as much there. We have great new candidates there. The best thing you can do is, A, help us register new Republican voters, so get involved with 10K for 10R. B, pick one of the many candidates we've got running, especially Texas House seats in the Metroplex. We're going to win back that seat in Louisville. That's a little ways away from you, but that's not that far from you. You could help them. We got a super tight race in the race that 92, I believe, that was Representative Stickland's, that, he's not running for re-election. That was a super tight race. That's right up the road from you in Haltom and that area, right? So we've got, in Arlington, we got a tight race. There are house races right near you. They're super tight. Every one of them could use volunteers. We're going to have staff there doing it. 10K for 10R, helping those candidates. We're going to be all over DFW. It'll probably have a quarter of our total staff will be in DFW. There will be plenty of chances to do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
Great, Chairman. We really appreciate it. So I've got the last question for you, and then we're just going to wrap up. So you are the reason that the RPT planks are now important again. I feel like it's solely you that did that. So can you just elaborate on doing that and how important the planks are to you and how important they are for the legislature and the state?
Absolutely. I love the fact that I now have folks calling me to say, hey, what does a platform say about X? That is so exciting because as I told you, I fell in love with how impactful the party can be and how impactful each of us can be in the party. There are platform planks in there because one person cared a lot to make sure so that got in there. So we've got 300 platform planks. The platform, I look at it as our encyclopedia. When a reporter calls me and says, what's your position on X? I can look it up in the platform and go, that's the party's official position on X. The legislature has thousands of bills. For every bill, we say, what's the platform position on that? Can we help or not? And what's been a big change is since we got involved in testifying in the legislature, we've now got legislators saying, I would love to advance this principle. I wish the platform spoke up on it. How do I make that happen? And the answer is it's grassroots up. So at these conventions, the county and Senate district convention, state convention, anybody, any delegate can propose a resolution. If it passes, it goes on to the next level. And if it passes at the state level, it ends up in our platform. And with 300 items in there, none of us agree with 100% of them. That's okay. That's actually a good thing. We don't expect mind-numb robots to believe every single thing identically. We believe in independent thought, and that's a conservative principle. With 300 items, any one of us can agree, any two of us can agree on 90% of them easily. Let's work on those and we'll worry about the rest some other day. But it has been, and come to convention so you can work on those. That is so important. But it is a virtuous cycle. We need to get everybody elected so that we can advance our principles, and our principles work. So we will have success. and then we can get more people elected. It's a wonderful virtuous cycle that works together, and it is a chance to work together. So you can testify at conventions, you can come testify during session. And if there's an issue that's in our platform and you'd like to testify on it and you're just unsure how or anything like that, send me an email, send me a text, reach out. I will gladly help you out. I testified 95 times last session. The party testified 300 times last session. But I started doing it when I was just a guy who cared about the issues, and it was an important conservative issue, and I showed up to testify. Do the same. Come, you can do this. And it is exciting. It's addictive. It's impactful. It makes a difference. I had a single precinct chair in Travis County who ended up getting a constitutional amendment to the Constitution passed. A single person in the Republican Party of Texas can have an amazing impact. Each of you can and should have an impact in the Republican Party of Texas. Do so by volunteering for 10K for 10R. Do so by being a delegate to convention. I can't wait to see you there. And thank you. Thank you for making a difference on your campus. Everybody you touch, it does matter. It does stick. It does make a difference.
Thank you, Chairman. I know that we all really appreciate those remarks, and the testifying thing. I know there's multiple CRs who'd love to do that, myself included, so I'm sure you'll get some emails on that. I'm going to toss it to our chairman, Colin Pruitt, real quick to express the Federation's gratitude, and then we'll give you your closing remarks and let you go.
Hey, thank you, Chairman Dickey, for getting on. I was hopping, kind of in and off video where I was taking notes about some of the tidbits of wisdom that you were giving us that I'm going to be really glad to share with the rest of the Federation and all the great folks who are doing so much great work at the campus level. And we're really excited about voter registration. Like Bella was saying, getting involved in DFW and Houston, all over the state of Texas. And we're going to do our best to, like you said, win in November. That's our number one priority. We're going to get involved in the convention process, but really right now, we just want to really thank you for all that you're doing, for all the support you've given college Republicans over the last couple of years. And really just want to thank you for spending your evening with us. So.
Oh, it is my pleasure, Colin. Thank you very much. Thanks, Carter, for emceeing. Thank you to every one of you for being involved and being committed. It does matter and it does make a difference. And to the extent I can help, anytime when fall comes, and I saw TCU just announced they'll be back on campus, and I'm confident most of the universities will have this figured out by then. I would love to come visit with you guys, whether in person or virtual. I'd be glad to help any way I can. My email is just jrdickey, JRDICKEY @texasgop.org, and my cell number is 512-623-0276. Send me a text, give me a call. Happy to help anytime. You guys are doing great things. Anything I can do to support it, I really want to. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing a bunch of you in Houston in July.
Great. Thank you very much, Chairman. We all appreciate it.